All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, with the Los Angeles Rams triumph in Super Bowl number 56, defensive tackle Aaron Donald is getting his fair share of attention, and rightfully so. Donald had two of the seven sacks by the Rams defense on Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow as he and his fellow teammates made life tough on the youngster in the second half. And with Donald's ability to deliver in the big game, his elite defensive prowess is getting the recognition it deserves. Now, Donald was selected in the first round by the Rams in 2014 when the team still called St. Louis home, and he's seen his fair share of lean years as well as success with the organization. But through it all, Donald has continued to deliver. Donald is a three-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year who is a man's man at the defensive tackle position. And with the Rams Super Bowl triumph, there are some people who feel that Donald is the greatest defensive player in NFL history. But is he? Now, Donald has 98 career sacks, which is very impressive, being that he is a defensive tackle as opposed to being a defensive end. Now, Donald sees his fair share of double and triple teams. With that said, he is still able to consistently get to the quarterback. Now, during this playoff run by the Rams, Donald had 3.5 sacks in 4 games. And you look at Donald's season in the presence of Von Miller, who was acquired from the Denver Broncos midseason, really changed things up for Donald as it freed him up more to get to the passer. Now, Raheem Morris, the Rams defensive coordinator, also, especially in his playoff run, lined Donald up at defensive end periodically just to give opposing offensive lines a different look as, his speed and power coming around that edge really changed things up. Now, you look at Donald. And you look at some of the greats on the defensive side of the ball in NFL history, and I'm just saying some because I'm not going to name all of them because there's so many of them. When you think about the who's who of the great ones, the likes of Lawrence Taylor, Ronnie Lott, Reggie White, Bruce Smith, Dion Sanders, Mean Joe Green, Deacon Jones, Ed Reed, Darrell Green, Darrell Revis, Ray Lewis, Dick Buckus, Mike Singletary, Brian Urlacher, Alan Page, and Junior Seau. And of course, these guys play different positions, but these are just some of the names of some of the legends who have impacted the game on the defensive side. And you look at Donald's impact on the game as only Alan Page, John Randall, Randy White, and Alex Karras have had more sacks than Aaron Donald from the defensive tackle position in NFL history. You look at it in regards to Donald's career, no player has had more sacks single season wise than Donald from the defensive tackle position. And you have to go back to his 2015 season with the Rams, where he had 20.5 sacks. And of course, he was the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year that year. He is in a rare club as far as being able to be a three-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Only J.J. Watt and Lawrence Taylor can say that, aside from Aaron Donald. With that said, though, you look at it, and for me, it's going to be very tough to go out there and say that Aaron Donald is the greatest defensive player ever. You look at it, and I think number one, you have to appreciate the era that a player plays in, first and foremost, and who he matches up against in that era. And it's like when you think about the greatest defensive players of this era, it's basically Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt. The only difference is with Aaron Donald, well, several differences between Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt. Number one, J.J. Watt is a defensive end slash outside linebacker, primarily a defensive end. On top of that, with J.J. Watt, it's like a tale of two careers because the injuries are really getting the best of J.J. Watt. He has 102 career sacks, but in the last 3 years, he only has 10. And a lot of that's due to injury because he's been unable to stay healthy. Donald, on the other hand, has been more consistent. He did play through pain in 2020, but nonetheless, he still was able to have 13 and a half sacks, still be the defensive player of the year, and still help the Rams make the playoffs. But nonetheless, you look at the impact of some of the great defensive players. First and foremost, Lawrence Taylor changed the game. And you look at the way that LT played because the game had never seen a force as big, fast, and strong as he was from the outside linebacker position. And of course, LT saw his fair share of double teams and triple teams, and he was a guy that you had to account for on every single play. You think about guys like Ronnie Lott and Ed Reed from the safety position. You think about Dion Sanders from the cornerback position as he would just shut down one half of the field. You also think about the likes of Darrell Revis, how he would shut down one side of the field as a cornerback as well. But for me, I look at the defensive tackle positions, and I mean, you look at John Randall for the most part. John Randall was an undersized defensive tackle who, racked up the sacks against guys who are bigger and stronger than him. And of course, that is why John Randall is in the Hall of Fame. You think about Randy White. And, Randy White was part of that famed doomsday defense of the Dallas Cowboys of the 1970s. And he's one of only 8 players in Super Bowl history to be the MVP of the game from the defensive side of the ball. Of course, in Super Bowl 12, Randy White was co-MVP with Harvey Martin as the Cowboys beat the Broncos 27-10. But you think about the Manster and what he meant as far as getting to the quarterback from the defensive tackle position. Of course, the great Alan Page, who, along with Lawrence Taylor, are the only defensive players in NFL history to be named as the MVP. And of course, there's plenty of bias, in my opinion, when it comes to that award in regards to the quarterback position. You think about the era that Alex Karras played in for the Detroit Lions as well. So, you have to factor a lot of that in. But I think right now, Aaron Donald has put his name among the greats. And of course, when you think about defensive tackles, you think about Mean Joe Green of the 1970s. And, Joe Green was the anchor, and Joe Green was the epitome of that steel curtain defense. And I say this because for anybody, go back and watch the game film. Joe Green's ability as a defensive tackle open things up for the likes of LC Greenwood, open things up for the likes of Jack Lambert, and so many other defensive players on that famed Steelers defense. Not taking anything away from those guys, but of course, Joe Green was the first pick that Chuck Noll ever made as Steelers head coach in 1969, and of course, the rest is history. And that's not a slight on Aaron Donald in any way, shape, or form. It's just the fact, again, you have to go back to the impact and you have to go back to the era. Now, for Aaron Donald, like I said, he did play on some bad Rams teams, and little by little, the pieces were put around him. You think about Aaron Donald, especially going back to the St. Louis days with the likes of Robert Quinn. And of course, Robert Quinn was a solid pass rusher, but he also fed off of the presence of Aaron Donald. We see what Leonard Floyd has become playing alongside Aaron Donald as he has finally lived up to the hype of being a first round pick that he had when he was drafted by the Chicago Bears many years ago. But nonetheless, Aaron Donald has solidified his legacy. He's put his name among some of the great defensive players in NFL history. But I am not going to go out there and simply say that Aaron Donald is the best defensive player ever. You look at it, he has made an impact on the game for the Rams. He is one of the better defensive players of this era. And if he were to retire right now, I mean, of course, he said at the parade today that he's going to run it back. But nonetheless, if he were to retire right now, he could moonwalk shirtless into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and nobody would bat an eye because that's how dominant he has been. But I think at the end of the day, you have to respect the era that he played in as far as what he did, because you think about, and I don't want to sound too long-winded about this, but when you think about defensive players, especially the pass rushers, you think about Reggie White's ability with that hump move to get to the passer. That was lethal. You think about Lawrence Taylor coming off of that edge. That was lethal. You think about Bruce Smith with the size, the speed, and the strength that he possessed to get to the passer. That again was lethal as well. So with that said, Aaron Donald is one of the better defensive players. Definitely, you know, if anybody didn't say that Aaron Donald was the best defensive player of this current era, they'd probably say JJ Watt. And the way the things are going right now, people are probably going to lean more to Aaron Donald. But nonetheless, he has definitely solidified his legacy for now and years to come. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you are on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There is also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.